Thanks for choosing to spend a bit of time with us, hearing about Business Energy Scotland and what we do. My name's Eva Rainey. I'm the Assistant Programme Manager of the scheme. I've been with Business Energy Scotland for a couple of years, and prior to that, spent around 8 years on the domestic side of the service, primarily focusing on renewable energy. So, yeah, hopefully I have a strong enough technical background to be able to answer any tricky questions that you might have for me later on. But we'll get started and run through this. Ideally, if you can hold your questions off till the end, we should have plenty of time to cover them. So, yeah, Business Energy Scotland are here today to tell you a little bit more about the support that's available from the Scottish Government to Scottish businesses to make sure that you take full advantage of what's on offer. And hopefully, after this short session, you'll have a clear picture of the support that's available to you, and you'll be contacting our team to set the wheels in motion. We're obviously recording this session for anyone that isn't able to make it along this evening or anyone who has to dip out at any point. And I'll also share the slides and some contact details after the session as well. So we'll get going. So I usually start this presentation by asking why bother with how you use energy? Why worry about saving energy? Which is a bit of a rhetorical question. I'm sure you're all very well aware that there are really big incentives to use energy more efficiently and to invest in energy saving improvements. The single biggest driver for businesses reaching out to us for help is rising costs, with at least what feels like ever increasing and volatile energy prices. Businesses understand that they can protect their profits by being more efficient in their use of energy, whether that's by changing their processes or by investing in the latest technologies to help offset their consumption. While money saving is the biggest reason for businesses getting in touch, we are seeing more and more businesses looking to reduce their carbon footprint and lower their impact on the environment. We know that green credentials help to build a good reputation and satisfy your customers' expectations that you'll operate sustainably. Like me, I'm sure you can't think of a day in recent times where climate change or single-use plastics or the cost of living and doing business wasn't in the news. Consumers are well aware of this as well, and most of them are now much more conscious of where they spend their money based on the reputation of a business. And finally, Scottish Government have some very ambitious targets, some of the most ambitious in Europe for reaching net zero carbon emissions. That means a balance between the amount of greenhouse gas that's produced and the amount that's removed from the atmosphere. And in Scotland, we're aiming to reach that point by 2045, which sounds like light years away, but time creeps up on us very quickly. Some projects can take a while to plan out and a while to move on. So best to start that journey to net zero now, and immediately see the benefits. A little bit more about us, for anyone who's not familiar. Business Energy Scotland is a service that's funded by the Scottish Government to provide free, impartial support and access to funding to help small and medium-sized enterprises save energy, save carbon, and save money. The support is provided by our team of business energy advisors who cover the whole of Scotland. So we've got that local regional knowledge, and we're supported with a network of consultancies that provide us with technical expertise on projects where required. We provide a wide range of free support to help businesses firstly identify energy and carbon saving opportunities. Those could be things like online guides and tools, skills development training, telephone consultations, and on-site assessments. And on top of that, we also provide free support to help businesses take the actions that are needed to implement those energy and carbon saving opportunities. So it's two-pronged. We work with you to find out what you should be doing, and then we support you to put that in place. That could be help applying for funding in the form of the Scottish Government's interest-free SME loan and grant scheme, which I'll spend a bit of time talking about this evening. It could be giving you guidance on finding and selecting suitable installers or suppliers, or it could be supporting you to get senior management buy-in for energy saving investments. I'm sure most of you have joined us this evening because you want to take action. At Business Energy Scotland, we realise that there can be a number of barriers to overcome in order for your organisation to put plans and ideas into practice, and you might even need help coming up with a plan in the first place. Most SMEs don't have the luxury of a full-time member of staff working on environmental issues or energy management, or even a part-time member of staff for that matter. And looking at the barriers on the screen in front of you, combined, those can seem unsurmountable, but This is where Business Energy Scotland really shine. We provide businesses like yourselves with free support to overcome these barriers and make your businesses greener. So we'll look at each of the barriers in turn. Firstly, a lack of time. I appreciate most of you and most people that we speak to on a day-to-day basis are busier than ever running their business. So finding the time to dedicate to energy efficiency can be a major hurdle, because that involves measuring and monitoring, interpreting data and planning, all of which can't usually be achieved in an afternoon or at a team meeting. But we have a team of experienced advisors, and as I said earlier, they cover the whole of Scotland and can provide you with that dedicated, bespoke support. We try as much as possible to do the work for you, to help you identify those opportunities to save energy, help you prioritise them, help you find people to give quotes, do work, and ultimately get funding to make things happen. You could be sitting there with an oven-ready project, in which case you might just need someone to quickly review that quote and help you access the financial support to fund your project. Equally, we're here to support with that, and I'll talk about some examples as we go through the presentation. Moving on, we've got a lack of technical skills. Unfortunately, not many SMEs have a technical expert in-house who knows the ins and outs of energy efficiency and renewable technologies. So as well as your dedicated advisor, we can also give you access to free technical support from a team of vetted external consultants. They can help you further refine your project. They're totally independent and can therefore provide you with impartial expertise, detailed recommendations that will give you estimated costs, savings, and payback periods or return on investment, with complete transparency to give you the information that you need to make an informed decision. It may be that there's an opportunity that you're considering, it's reviewed by the consultant and they determine that actually it's going to cost you more money to run this new heating system than it would to run the one that you have, or the insulation that you're planning to install is going to take 200 years to return on investment. We'll be transparent about that. And if you want to pursue it, you've got the facts there. But equally, if there's something else that you could be investing in that would make a bigger impact, we'll outline that for you as well. If you're in the fortunate position of having someone in-house with those technical skills, but you just want a second opinion, or you want someone to quantify the likely financial benefits of your project, our consultants can support with that too. And all of this is non-obligational. So if you do receive support from a consultant, you're not under any obligation to go ahead and install anything. Some businesses just like to get that reassurance or understand the priorities for them and where they should be focusing their energy. Moving on, we've got management buy-in. So I could be sitting here with lots of decision makers, but in other cases, we've seen situations where businesses have the best project in the world, but they've struggled to secure senior management buy-in. And it's a significant stumbling block, and it's seen lots of good cost-saving projects gather dust because the benefits, whether those are financial or environmental, just weren't presented convincingly. So this is another barrier that we can help you to overcome. I mentioned earlier, our recommendations come in the form of a comprehensive consultant's report, which provide lots of detail to support the decision-making process. And beyond that, we can also provide training, excellent guidance documents and templates, all of which can help you develop a detailed business case. Another thing we can do is introduce you to similar local businesses who've already done the work to inspire confidence in your management team and give you a perspective that I can't, because I am impartial, and the businesses who join our Green Network for Businesses are not necessarily. They can talk to you about the installation process, the company they used, answer questions that we can't. If they were to do it again, would they do things differently? So great to get that perspective and again, hopefully inspire that confidence in your management team. Your dedicated advisor can also provide further support, which could involve presenting your business case to your senior managers if you feel that would be of benefit. We fairly frequently go along to board meetings and talk through the details of reports, sometimes just to give a bit more perspective and a bit more insight. So lots that we can do to support with that barrier. And what I'm showing you here is a snapshot of the kind of detail that's presented in our reports. So what you've got there are a list of recommended improvements. The order that they're in will vary. It'll either be in order of which is going to save the most money, if you've told us that saving money is your priority, or which is going to save the most carbon, if you've told us that your focus is more environmental. We'll outline the potential costs, whether it's from a quote that you've provided or an estimate from our consultant, and the savings come in the form of financial, energy, and carbon, and you'll also get an estimated payback period, which is the return on investment. We recently had an independent evaluation carried out that informed us that up to 70% of customers that we've advised have either already taken action or plan to take action off the back of our reports and recommendations, which is a glowing endorsement, and hopefully you'll go on to do the same. And the final barrier, and usually the most common and hardest to overcome, is the lack of finance. And we hear it all the time. Businesses tell us, your report was great, I'd love to do these things, but, or we've just spent £10,000 on something else, or, have a look at it in next year's budget and it gets kicked down the line. All the while we see the business overspending because energy is being wasted. So the simple solution is get access to funding. There are multiple sources of funding that you could explore through local authorities, Business Gateway, sector-specific charities and trusts. But this evening, I'm going to spend some time talking to you about the support that's available from the Scottish Government in the form of an interest-free loan scheme with some grants attached. That would be the Scottish Government's SME loan scheme, which would offer eligible businesses anywhere from £1 to £100,000 in interest-free loans. Those loans are unsecured and there are no set-up charges, and they can be set up against capital allowances. The standard repayment period is over up to 8 years, though that is flexible if you would like to reduce it to suit. There's no obligation to keep it running any longer than is necessary, and there are no penalties for paying it back sooner. There is also an offer at the moment, and I will have to give you all the terms and conditions here, for a limited period allocated on a first come, first served basis and subject to availability. If you apply for the SME loan to install eligible improvements, you could receive up to £30,000 in cashback funding or grant funding. There are different thresholds for different types of improvements, which I'll cover in the next slide. And just a quick set of numbers for you here. The SME loan scheme has provided Scottish businesses with over £26 million in loans so far. We've supported over 1,000 projects, and the resulting financial savings are estimated to be in the region of £48 million across those projects. But moving on, we'll chat a little bit more about the specifics here. So on this table, I've highlighted some improvements which might be of particular interest to tennis clubs. Big one is going to be lighting. We have non-stop inquiries from sports clubs of all natures about LED lighting, whether it's inside in clubhouses and changing rooms and corridors, or whether it's floodlights, car park lighting, you name it. That's a big one, and it's an easy win in most cases. We also have a lot of inquiries about insulation, again, typically for clubhouses, changing rooms, locker rooms, that sort of thing. And low carbon heating systems like air source heat pumps have been really popular as well. A lot of those systems can offer both space heating and cooling, so can be used similar to an air conditioning unit if we ever have weather that's warm enough to warrant that. But alternatively, in the colder periods, can generate warm air. You've still got the option of traditional wet central heating systems with radiators and underfloor heating, but certainly the warm air and air conditioning is a popular one. And there's a lot more on offer. The lists of improvements here are not exhaustive. I've just tried to pinpoint some that might be of particular interest, and depending on your club's individual needs, we're happy to review anything where there would be substantial energy or financial savings. But to talk about this table here, as you can see at the bottom, the loan value is up to £100,000 per business with a maximum repayment period of up to 8 years. And we've got improvements split into 3 different categories here. So for energy efficiency, we're talking about things like standard heating systems, lighting, ventilation, insulation, glazing, draft proofing, refrigeration, and various other things. As I say, that's not an exhaustive list, but those are some of the big ones. What you would be entitled to would be grant funding of up to 75% and a maximum of £20,000 across all improvements in that category. Unfortunately, it's not up to £20,000 for each item in that category. It's overall. To give you an example of how that would work, let's say you've got a quote for £1,000 to upgrade your lighting to LEDs. That's probably very ambitious, but for simplicity, we'll go with £1,000. There's 75% grant funding on the table. So essentially, we would be asking you to take out an interest-free loan for £250 because the grant funding of 75% is taken off immediately, and we only ask you to repay 25%. So that's how it's designed to work. We've had various versions of this scheme in the past where we've offered vouchers or people have paid for things and we've reimbursed them, but administratively, they haven't all worked as smoothly as we would like. In this case, you do need to take the interest-free loan in order to access the grant so that we have that mechanism to take the discount off, but you are borrowing a smaller amount and you do have up to 8 years in which to repay it, with the flexibility to pay it off sooner if you would like to. Moving on, we've also got renewable heat on offer. So there are various different types of heat pumps there, air source heat pumps usually being the most practical and the most common, but you've also got biomass wood-fueled boilers, solar thermal panels which sit on the roof and generate hot water to feed typically showers and taps, but can also feed into radiator systems as well. For those systems, again, it's up to 75% grant funding at a maximum of £10,000. And finally, we've got some other technologies, things like wind turbines and micro hydro systems. Not particularly common, they're very site specific, so unless you're in a very remote area, it's unlikely they'd be applicable to you, but if they happen to be, along with some of those other improvements there is no grant funding for them, but the interest-free loan would still be available and you still have up to 8 years to pay them back. You can combine things in different categories. You can apply for the loan more than once. The £100,000 and the £30,000 of grant funding are separate. So essentially, you could access funding of up to £130,000 per business, or apply for things in stages over a period of time. To access support from Business Energy Scotland, you have to have a premises in Scotland, you have to have less than 250 full-time equivalent employees, and you have to meet specific turnover and balance sheet totals, the limits of which are set by the government and form the definition of an SME. You can see the figures there: turnover not exceeding £42 million and balance sheets not exceeding 36 million. So well done if you're reaching those figures, but in most cases, businesses in Scotland are not, and therefore those do not tend to be barriers to support. What you can see below those first three categories, there's a bit of divergence there. So on the left, we've got the criteria for support from ourselves, and on the right, we've got some criteria for the interest-free loan scheme, which is a little bit more rigorous, but again, hopefully not anything that's unattainable. So yes, for ourselves, you can be registered at any time. So you could have been trading for a single day. We'll still be more than happy to give you advice and help you get access support from a consultant. To access the interest-free loan, you do need to have been trading for at least 12 months, and you need to be able to provide at least one set of annual accounts if requested. In terms of your ownership, for support from ourselves, whether you're owned by a holding company or own another company, it doesn't matter as long as you still meet the definition of an SME, particularly in relation to the number of employees and the turnover and balance sheet figures. When it comes to the interest-free loan, you have to be less than 25% owned by another business and yourself have a holding of less than 25% in any other businesses. So just one to be mindful of there. And if anyone has any questions about that, I'm happy to answer those offline on an individual basis. In terms of credit score, it's not applicable for our support. We'll support you regardless. Obviously, if you are looking to access finance, then there would be a requirement to undergo a credit check and an affordability check as standard. In terms of project status, you can come to us on day one, not knowing what you need to do, just knowing that you need to save some money, and we'll work with you to identify the right opportunities. Or you can come to us when you've got a quote and you're ready to go. But in order to access funding through the interest-free loan, it's a very important stipulation that you must not start the work or pay any deposits until you have applied and you have been accepted onto the loan scheme. We don't offer any retrospective funding, and that applies to even starting the work or paying deposits. With regards to the loan, typically we release the funds upon completion of the work. However, if you do need to access some of the money early to pay deposits so that you're not out of pocket waiting on the loan to be paid, you can request early access to what we would call a drawdown of up to 25% as soon as you've been approved. So bear that in mind if you apply. You don't need to sit out of pocket and wait for your loan funds to come back. You can let us know, and we are happy to facilitate requests for deposits to be covered. So again, probably best talking about those things on an individual basis, but good to have a heads up at this stage. I'll move on now to a few examples of some sports clubs that we've supported recently. The first is Abercorn Sports Club, who were awarded Tennis Scotland's Club of the Year last year. We carried out a free lighting assessment and we identified estimated annual savings of over £8,000 and annual carbon savings of over 5 tonnes. The club had installed LED floodlights on 3 of their outdoor courts with financial support provided by the SME Loan and Grant Scheme, and they've come back to us again for support to upgrade the remaining outdoor court. You can see a quick statement there, a bit of feedback from the club welfare officer, had a positive experience of working with us, and yeah, hopefully that'll inspire you to take some action yourself. Moving on, we've got Elgin Tennis Club, one of the oldest in the country. They took on a lease from Moray Council and they prioritised the upgrading of their lighting to LED. So you can see it's a common theme here. They switched out their old 500 and 750 watt halide lights to LED equivalents, and they made use of the loan and grant support to do so. They're now seeing savings in the region of £1,000 per year. And with regards to LEDs specifically, we know they're really popular with sports clubs, primarily because they bring down the cost and carbon emissions, but they have the added benefit of obviously having a longer lifespan than halide or fluorescent equivalents, meaning they need to be changed less frequently, which is especially beneficial for floodlights, which are mounted at height, less maintenance involved, less replacements and lower costs. I've popped this in here because I just wanted to highlight that it's not all about lighting, though there are great savings to be made, as you've seen in the previous 2 examples. What we've got here is an example of some of the key recommendations for a large sports facility with both indoor and outdoor courts. And this is a real snippet from one of our reports that's gone out to the client. So firstly, we've got a recommendation for lighting, which was to upgrade their indoor lights and the floodlights. With the floodlights, it was a bulb change only. They were able to make use of the existing poles. There was also a recommendation to upgrade their commercial hot water system to power their showers and taps. That's the DHW that you can see there. And there was also a recommendation for a low carbon heating system for the communal areas and cafe, and that was an air source heat pump, so a renewable heating system feeding a wet central heating system with radiators. As you can see there, there's grant funding of up to £20,000 for the first 2 improvements because they fall into the energy efficiency category, the lighting and hot water system. And there's a further £10,000 of grant funding available for that renewable heating system. And with the implementation of that grant funding, you can see the investment costs and the payback period or return on investment is reduced considerably. And yeah, looking at this report here, this club could be making annual savings of about £23,000 and annual carbon savings of almost 29 tonnes, which is absolutely massive. I know all of you will be operating on different scales here. Some of you might be up at this level, some of you might be a bit smaller, but proportionately, there are still considerable savings to be made. These are all really common improvements, in most cases fairly easy wins. And you can see there the payback period for the lighting, once that grant has been applied, comes down to 1.7 years. So paying for itself really, really quickly. So yeah, that's the kind of improvements that you're likely to see popping up in reports. But it's not exhaustive. If your building or your clubhouse needed full insulation, we'd have a lot more on that list for you to choose from. Our team has identified over £200 million of cost savings for businesses, and typically the savings are £50,000 per business over the lifetime of the projects. And there's a massive 24% average energy saving per business. So when you're thinking about that 24%, think about how big your energy bill is and how much a 24% saving would give you. And think about what you could do with that. It could be a new member of the team, new equipment, bonuses for staff. And equally, how much more business would you have to do to make a similar impact on your bottom line? I've mentioned already 70% of our customers have already taken action or plan to take action off the back of our recommendations. And on top of that, 9 out of 10 customers that we engage with would recommend us. So again, hopefully you'll be inspired to take some action after this session tonight. I'll give you a brief outline of our customer journey from the point of making an initial inquiry right through to applying for the funding. I'll start off by saying the timescales that I've given here are averages throughout the whole year, and they do vary depending on inquiry levels at any point in time. There are natural spikes where we get busier, usually the winter months, as you can imagine, but also it's dictated by the market and what's going on externally as well. Some of the timescales are within our control, some are not so much. So there is a point in this process that we'll come to where the baton is handed over to yourself to engage with the consultant, and your availability will play a role in the timescale. But starting at the very beginning, it's as simple as going onto our website, which I'll send you a link in the chat to at the end, and filling in an online inquiry form, which takes less than 90 seconds to do. That gets the ball rolling. And if you fill that in this evening, by tomorrow morning, one of our advisors will have sent you out a support request form, which is a Word document where we ask for a little bit more detail about your business and about the site. And if required for certain improvements, depending on what you're looking at, we might ask you to provide us with some bills as well. The reason we ask for that is to personalize the report as much as possible and get it as accurate as possible. If we can base it on what your actual consumption is and factor in your actual unit prices, your actual tariff, rather than averages, it will be much more realistic in terms of what you can expect to save. Once we've got that information back, it will be reviewed by one of our business energy advisors. They'll be appointed to your case, and that will be your dedicated point of contact throughout this entire process. That advisor will reach out to you to book a time to have a call, either via the phone, Microsoft Teams, whatever you prefer, and they'll chat through the documents that you've returned, get an idea of where you're at with things, what you would like to do, if you have any ideas. If not, they'll go through and make some suggestions, and together you'll agree what is going to be reviewed by the technical consultant. We look at the scope of the project, we look at the area you're in, and we'll determine if it can be done over the phone or if someone's going to need to come out on site and do an audit in person. We'll select a suitable consultant, and we'll put them in touch with you. They'll typically reach out to you within a few days to arrange that call or that site visit, and you'll work with them to provide any further information that they need in order to provide that really detailed overview of your potential improvements and the savings. The consultant will produce a report and send it back into ourselves. We do complete a quality assurance check on all of the reports that come back. We work with lots of different consultancies, all of whom have a little bit of artistic license to do things in their way. Some of them use different calculation methods and tools than others. We have a look over them to make sure that everything's nice and consistent, and most importantly, that everything is laid out nice and clear for the loans department, should you wish to use that report as proof that you're eligible for the loan. It's a required document when you apply for funding, so you would need a completed application form, which we would provide you with, a copy of the report that recommends the improvements that you're looking to install, and you would also need to provide us with the quotes for the work that you're looking to do. But at this point in the process, your business energy advisor would be working with you, providing that application form, having a look over your quotes, and once the form is complete, as standard, they will offer to review that for you to make sure that everything's been completed appropriately. It's not the most complex form in the world, but there are lots of tick boxes and lots of things to fill in. And if you can get it complete, correct, and all of the right documents attached first time round, it just makes the next stage in the process a bit faster. Typically, application processing times are between 5 and 10 working days. Again, it varies, and at certain points in the year, it can extend beyond that. But if we get it all right first time round, we're looking to have you closer to that 5 working day time scale. Loan gets approved, and at that point, you can start the work. You've got 6 months to get it all done. If it runs over for any reason, you can let us know and we can extend that. If you don't need the full 6 months, that's great. Push on, let us know when it's done. We'll typically ask you for some photographs and some invoices just to see that it has been completed. And from there, we'll arrange for the loan funds to be paid to you and you would pay your contractor. And that's how it would work. Probably sounds a lot more convoluted than it actually is. Hopefully that diagram helps. And the fact that you've got one dedicated point of contact throughout the entire process really does make that a lot easier. They'll build a relationship with you, they'll understand your project, understand your site, and it just keeps everything moving in the right direction, nice and smoothly. And finally, we do offer lots of free online help, as I've mentioned earlier. One of the great things that we do is free CPD certified Green Champions training. So this is a 2-hour online webinar session that's interactive and held by our business energy advisors. And it's followed by some online modules that you complete in your own time. You do get CPD accreditation out of it, but importantly, you learn lots of really practical skills that relate to measuring and monitoring your own consumption, understanding key areas of the business where you could be making improvements. And it's not just about actual physical work being done, it can be behavioural change and things that you can implement to help staff make behavioural changes that will have a positive influence on the business. We get loads of really great feedback on this course, usually hundreds of participants in each session, and we run it at various points throughout the year, fully funded by ourselves. So if you do have anyone in your team that is particularly interested in sustainability or is taking a more active role in the energy efficiency side of things, definitely do let us know and we can pass on the dates and details for those courses. We've got lots of tools and guides on the website. We've got skills development webinars that we run every so often, either doing some introductions to different technologies, things like heat pumps. We also offer practical sessions which talk about maybe working with landlords if you happen to rent your premises, a whole host of different things there. And we've got a staff engagement toolkit as well. So the links in the slides, which will be provided, if you would like to check any of that out, just follow the link and it'll take you there. And if you have any questions about the Green Champions training, I'll pop my email address into the chat shortly and you can get in touch and let me know. And all that remains to be said is, if you've been inspired by what you've heard this evening, to get in touch. I'll pop the link in the chat very shortly to our website. It's a short online inquiry form to get started, and the team will reach out to you to get the more detailed information and set you up with your dedicated advisor. There's a couple of options on the website, so if you're not sure where to start, or if you know from the beginning that you're interested in multiple improvements, there is the option to select just an energy efficiency assessment. If your focus is solely on lighting or solar panels, for example, there are dedicated assessments for these, and you'll see those options on the website. The process is typically a bit faster. So if you're sitting there and you know you're just waiting on a quote coming back for lighting, you might want to fill that option in first. We'll get in touch, quickly get a report produced for you and allow you to push on with your loan application. And if you then want to come back to us and talk about insulation or ventilation or heating, we can pick up on that. There's no limit to the number of inquiries that you can make. We are happy to review as many improvements as are viable, and we're happy to work with you and understand your priorities and just kind of guide you towards the most practical, critical path. That's everything that I wanted to cover this evening. Thank you very much. I don't think anyone's dropped off, so you've all managed to bear with me on a Thursday night at this time. So yeah, that's dedication. And Grant's heard this twice today, so congratulations to him for holding on. I'll stop sharing. I'll pop some information into the chat, and if you've got questions, please fire away.